welcome back to my channel. My name is Dee. Welcome if you're new. So today I invited my friend Andrew to come to this channel and have a little chat. So Andrew, would you like to maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Dee, for having me on this video. I've been a fan of your channel for a while, and I'm glad to be collaborating with you. You know, we have a lot of, we're quite like-minded, so I'm happy to be on this video. Well, for the viewers, my name is Andrew. I'm a sophomore at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I study computer science and economics. I'm graduating a year early, so in about a month, I'll be halfway through college. It's crazy, I know. But one thing, the platform through which, Dee and I met, well, we met on Instagram, but I host a podcast called the Enigma Podcast, where me and my co-host, we bring on guests, we talk about current events, we talk about life. Sometimes we get into serious topics like politics and things, but overall, it's a good atmosphere and it's a great way to expand out to our community. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, a little over a year and a half. I started coincidentally at the start of quarantine, just before then. So it became kind of my side project, and I've been able to grow it since then. So it's been great.
Nice. So Andrew's work has been really fascinating, and he has his own YouTube channel. It's more so about college life, but I will leave his info in the description bar below. And if you're interested, please go check him out.
Yeah, I appreciate the support. I haven't uploaded a video in a long time, but I plan to get back into it soon enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you're still a rising sophomore, right? And let's just talk about college life, what you have been experiencing so far at U of I, because I just graduated this summer from also U of I, and my experience might be a little bit different from yours since I was in a liberal arts college. And how's it been for you studying computer science and economics?
Well, in terms of academics, I have to give credit to Illinois. They have fantastic academic accolades. I've had a great education, technical education from a computer science standpoint, and a great theoretical and practical education from the economic standpoint. The computer science department here at U of I, it's very highly acclaimed globally. So I'm glad to be a part of that. And the economics department, it's kind of middle of the road in terms of reviews and its rating compared to other university programs. But it's been a great time so far in terms of academics. And one thing I like about Illinois, there's so many students here, including grad students. There's about 50,000 students here at the university of different backgrounds and different viewpoints and so forth. And it's been a good time so far overall. There have been some hiccups down the road, which I'm sure we'll mention, but overall, it's been a decent experience.
Nice. So in terms of just student life in general, is it kind of different from what you had expected when you were in high school?
Oh, absolutely. Well, for starters, didn't realize, in high school, didn't realize we had this global pandemic going on for
Oh my God.
a year and a half. But, student life, it's interesting because when I was in high school, I'm the oldest child in my family. So I didn't really have many, sources to look up to in terms of what college is like. So I went in knowing, all right, this is going to be interesting. I might have my select group of friends, and I might just take it, carry them forward through the 4 years, back when I thought I'd graduate in 4 years. And, it's so crazy. If I can go on a quick aside, it's so crazy with the time, nowadays with social media and technology and so forth, it's quite harder to personally interact with people, especially with COVID. It was very hard. Freshman year was definitely tough. The first semester, meeting people.
Oh yeah.
And it seemed, some people were, I guess, a little more extroverted. I consider myself quite an introvert. but the more extrovert people, they, rushed fraternities and sororities, and they already had their friend group by freshman year. So some people were lucky. Some people, it was a challenge, including myself. And, I've slowly started working towards it. This year has been great progress. I, know a lot of great people who I hang out with, but it was definitely different, a different atmosphere than what I had expected.
I can imagine. And have you noticed any sort of issues that have been going on in colleges so far? And is it kind of different from what you thought in high school, that that college is just this one place that tolerates all thoughts and everything, things like that?
Yeah, put that down on paper, right? Yeah, it was definitely something to get used to. Especially last fall, it was during election season.
Yeah,
And it's there was a lot of hostility and toxicity going on among the
I can
student
imagine.
populace. And I mean, I'm all for free speech. I consider myself a small L libertarian. I don't really like much, people, infringing other people's rights. So I mean, good for
Right,
them. But the whole, you know, we have to all realize that everyone is a human being. Okay, we're all human beings, and it seems like there's a trend going around where people like to distinguish themselves and not
yes.
include themselves in the entire human community, and isolate others based on certain identities and so forth. So that was definitely something to get used to. Maybe it's from my perspective because my high school that I grew up, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I went to a quite large suburban high school that was mostly white, and
Right.
going to a university where you have some people from public high schools like I did, a lot of international students who come from different educational backgrounds, some people who are from the States but went to like private bougie day schools where mommy and
Yeah,
daddy paid 60 grand a year to go.
yeah,
um they have different, they think about life differently. So
right,
it was definitely, and I can't really speak a bunch anecdotally,
right.
because I mean, freshman year, I was a little more outspoken than I am now. I realize nowadays it's not really worth it.
Oh my God, you're feeling like you're walking on eggshells
Oh, absolutely.
a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And you were gonna say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, so for me, I'm an international student, and this is kind of different from I had expected, especially when it comes to the tuition fee, because back in China, where I finished my undergrad education, I spend probably like around less than $1,000 a year. And coming here, I found out that everybody is in student loan debt,
Yeah.
basically. And that's a huge, almost like culture shock to me. And have you noticed anything like that in terms of a shock to you in terms of school life?
Um, yeah, well, I mean, growing up in the States, I, did grow up, knowing that a lot of people who were in student loan debt, and that is a problem. School's just getting, ridiculously expensive. Uh, for and if there was a little better budgeting
Yeah,
in universities, I think that
right.
that could alleviate some of that issue. But that's a story for another time, maybe
Oh,
another
yeah.
video.
And back to the topic about college.
Yeah.
And another thing is, I found out that people were very vocal about their political belief
Oh,
in the
yes.
US. Because, I mean, back in China, people tend to have this belief that you should keep your thoughts to yourself.
Right.
And if you say something not politically correct, you might get actually punished for it. And would you say you're seeing that trend in the US too, even though people are very vocal?
Absolutely. Our governments are a little different. In China, it's a little more authoritarian over there,
Right?
from a government, from a state perspective. But in the United States, it's a little more from a social, you know, the I guess the way to compare it, in the United States, there's a very big emphasis on the court of public opinion,
Right.
which cancel culture has been around for about 10 years or so, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah.
And it's running rampant across American culture, universities, public life, celebrities, so forth.
Right.
And it's it's definitely crazy.
Right.
It was a shock to me. And to answer your question earlier about culture shock in college, it was where I come from, and I guess I went on a tangent earlier, but what I was gonna lead it to, like where I grew up, people kind of accepted each other and all that. But now here, it's like so many clashing opinions and thoughts, where it's there's a lot of there was a lot of hostility, and I mean there still is a little now, but I mean it's
Right.
calmed down, but it's still a problem.
Yeah, adding to that, really, when you touched on cancel culture, it just reminded me of this one incident that happened to me when I was still in grad school. We had this sociolinguistic class,
Yeah,
and during one lecture, there was a video that showed a lot of obstacles that foreigners face when they're trying
yeah,
to find a job in the US, especially during
right,
interviews. And
absolutely.
I think in that video in particular, there was a mentioning of this N word.
Oh
And
boy.
I mean, to me, because I grew up in a very homogenous society, racial issues is not a problem to me. So
Right,
I don't know. I mean, it was a documentary. Don't you want to be factual with it? But
absolutely.
the professor specifically emailed everybody in our class saying there's a trigger warning and there's very obscure language or just very kind of offensive language included in the video. And this is when it will appear.
Yep.
And that, to me, that just seems very strange because, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a documentary. And now if you can't even watch a documentary, I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, it's our culture and society from 10, 15 years ago is a lot different than it is now. Nowadays, I think our generation, I think the biggest problem is our generation has gotten quite soft.
Hmm.
And there's this famous adage that you and I, were talking about when we met earlier. There's it goes along, I may be paraphrasing, but it goes along the lines of, soft times create soft people create hard times create hard people, and hard people create soft times. So it's this
Yeah,
vicious cycle
right,
of
right,
human emotion.
right.
But yeah, I think we're at a time of soft individuals where, like I said, and let me put this disclaimer out there: I'm a white man, and I don't condone any sort of discrimination of any kind. I feel like I have to put that a disclaimer down in the
Yep,
down the bottom of my text in my bottom of my picture here.
right.
There's a lot of problems with that going on, a lot of actual racism and discrimination, especially last year and a half since the start of this pandemic. A lot of anti-Asian violence, which I find devastating. Um, just a brief aside, last week there was an individual
Yeah,
uh,
from
who
U of Chicago.
from U Chicago who was killed and robbed and killed, and it's very tragic, and
Right.
there's a lot of that going on. But I think in terms of social discourse, people just need to have tough conversations and not
Yes.
be scared, of potentially disastrous or offensive things and
Right.
topics. They have
Right.
to address they exist, and build and learn from there, and build their character.
Exactly. Because when we're learning about history, learning about Second World War, right, World War II, we don't put trigger warning when we mention the slaughter of Jew. We learn
Yep.
about the fact and we look at it objectively, and then we move on. In the future, we prevent stuff like that. And if you don't even want to look at it face to face, face on, like how are you going to learn from it, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, everything has a lesson to it. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
History also always teaches lessons, whether it be colonization and some of the nastiness that came along with that, wars, genocide, so forth. Nowadays people just want to ignore it, but it's important that we learn about these things and we learn about the characters of the people involved, and so we can learn and develop our characters as a society and not repeat
Right.
those.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly. Yes. If you don't learn about history, you're going to repeat it. And I guess more or less, we are sort of repeating our history right now. And that's why we're having these types of conversations to talk it out, at least to
right.
let people know that this is necessary. If you don't talk about it, then we're going to face something real, real tough in the future.
I agree. I agree.
Yes.
And I'm glad we're having these conversations. People need to realize that, we're in a pretty awful trajectory right now,
Yes.
both from an economic perspective, but also from a social perspective. So I think we need to
Right.
change as a people.
Right. I mean, we talk about not thinking about things from a binary perspective. It's not just black or white. And we also need to remember that there's not just agree and you either agree or disagree. You can agree to disagree. And we need to bring that time back, especially to our campus world. That's,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm all about, and just a quick aside, sorry for cutting you off,
Yeah,
but
don't worry.
I believe in the marketplace of ideas, the free market of ideas. Um, you know, Humans are unique individuals, you know, in our society, everyone has different viewpoints of life, and
Yes.
people, and it comes from backgrounds, and it comes from their backgrounds. People come from humble beginnings and have a different life view than someone who's been handed everything and went to a rich public, or I'm sorry, private day school from K through
Yeah.
12, and then went to, Yale. There's not much real world exposure out there. So that
Yes.
kind of that also influences a lot of people's viewpoints as well.
Oh, yes, exactly. And speaking of that, do you think actually education is, or especially higher ed education, the traditional 4-year university education is for everybody? Apparently, everybody is trying to get it.
And that's a great question, D. Honestly, like I said before, everyone comes from different backgrounds and everyone has different skill sets and interests. Aside from, while I think higher education has its place and is important, there has been a drastic decrease in or drastic shortage of trade jobs like
Yes.
welders, plumbers, HVAC, things like that, that pay very well, and those individuals make a great living.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and it's quite a noble profession. It
Oh,
affects
my
a lot
God.
of people's
Yes.
lives. It's quite a noble profession.
Oh, my God.
So
Yeah.
I think people need to get rid, and I think our society and our job market, our labor market, we have to kind of pull back from the influence of higher education. Or I'm sorry, I mean, the higher education will always have influence, but kind of remove the necessity. Oh, you need a 4-year degree to get this
Right.
starter job.
Right.
And that's one thing I like about the computer science realm and the programming realm. It's mostly skill based, so you need to
Right.
show your skills. Instead of flashing this degree and like, oh, I'm
Yes.
qualified to have your job
Right.
and do a great
Right.
job. It's all about what you know, and
Yes.
I think that, and it used to be that way based on anecdotal stuff from older people. They were able to get jobs a lot easier from their skill sets and training and so forth, and
Right.
less so from college. But
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah, you mentioned about free market, right? We need to pull back and then just take a look at the market, what's in demand and what is not. And I remember when I was in high school, everybody told us to go into a 4-year university no matter what. And then when you graduate, you'll be able to have a better life.
yeah,
But that's no longer the case because the market is extremely saturated. And that's
I agree.
why, right, the tradesmen are in high demand. And for those of them who finish those certificates programs, they were able to get a pretty good life without a huge student loan that they have to pay for decades. So,
Yeah, it all comes down to individual need. If your
right.
family is in solid financial shape and can afford to go to school, then go
Yes.
do it. And if you think you want to go into a career that requires a higher level of education, go for it. But if
Right.
your family is kind of in dire straits, and which in America is quite a bit,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who are under that realm
Right, right,
and want to develop financial security, get your real estate license, or go for training in a
right,
trades in a
right,
trade, be it apprenticeship or whatever, and go that route. Yeah, or if people have a need to serve, join the military. I mean,
right.
embrace the suck, but that's very noble profession.
Yeah.
Um, and there are a lot of people who think that it's the opposite of noble, and screw them. But
I know we need our military,
absolutely,
right? And then
absolutely,
right, you get extremely good benefits from it too. Again, there are so many ways to get around instead of going to a four-year university in the US. You can even go to, I know a lot of people who go to community colleges to
oh
get
yeah,
their associate. And then if they want, they can
transfer.
transfer, or if they want to start working right off the bat, they can absolutely do it and make a good
There's no
living.
rush. There's no rush.
Right,
It's all
right,
about individual need.
right. Awesome. So I think we really touched on a really good point on that. And since our time is a little bit running a little low, would
Yeah,
you want to quickly wrap up? Have
yeah,
something to say in the end?
yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again, Dee, for having me on. You can follow my podcasts. I'm on YouTube now. Just look up Enigma Podcast. I'll send Dee the link to the YouTube channel, and hopefully maybe she'll link it in the
Yeah,
description.
absolutely.
My podcast Instagram is the dot Enigma Podcast, and then if you go on there, you can find where I'm at. But other than that, it's been a great chat, Dee. This has been a long time coming. I've been a big fan of your content, especially your last video with Sean talking about
Yeah, dating.
dating. That was, it hit the nail on the head. I was like, yeah, this is impressive. And the rest of your videos come from an immigrant perspective. I think it's very important that people view your videos, and you're quite a great influence on our young community. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
but other than that, yeah, I'm just glad to be on here.
All right. It was a great time for me too. Thank you again for coming up here. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we'll have another conversation for your podcast soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.